Hey, what's up? Welcome to the first episode of Chew Gum and Get Limber. We just named it like 30 seconds ago, so I forgot entirely. But yeah, it's the first episode of a podcast we're gonna start doing. It's just general like long form album reviews. Maybe it's pretty up in the air. That's what we kind of want to start working toward. So really excited about it. My name is Brennan Clark. I'm a musician myself. I play in a band with the other guy here, Avery. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm Avery. We both play music, so we feel that we are qualified enough to talk about music, even though we're totally not.
If anybody is.
Casual to obsessive fans at most. So, today, what are we doing today? Is that what we're doing? Yeah. We're going to start talking about Fiona Apple and her new album, Fetch the Bolt Cutter.
Yes.
Fiona Apple, obviously, Grammy-winning and award-nominated recording artist, singer-songwriter.
I didn't even know she was like Grammy nominated until I started looking her up after this album came out.
Yeah, to be honest, so like
what was the song?
I think Criminal.
Criminal, yes,
for
thank you.
Female rock vocal performance, I think, which is awesome. Good for her.
Yeah.
And then I think she got an award for a music video or something like that as well. So she's been released. She's got 5 albums out as of 2020, which is cool. Kind of sparing releases here and there, but I feel like everything's kind of had that general like original like that's Fiona Apple sound, including this new one. So
it's pretty unique for sure.
A pretty unique gal.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Cool. Yeah. And so I guess we were gonna kind of talk generally about it. I thought that it was super interesting. The production felt like an old like jazz recording at times, like from the 50s, like some of those like old like Coltrane and Miles Davis records. It helped that it was like an upright bass, so I think that part of me has like a mental association with jazz and the upright bass. But it was it definitely felt like those old sort of like roomy recordings. It was really really cool. I liked it. Very hip.
Hip indeed. I thought like just in terms of production, just to start, it was kind of experimental in a weird way. I wasn't expecting exactly when I was getting in there. By the end of the first song, she's doing like dolphin noises. So,
but dolphin noises, but make it art. Right?
But make it art exactly. So it's pretty neat. But just in terms of like production, it's I would say it's bare bones, but it's like it's layered pretty well.
But there are moments where it was like they're like really dense moments too. It's like in terms of arrangement, I really enjoyed the way it was like super sparse and super dense
absolutely.
at times.
I like what you said about the jazz thing. I kind of thought maybe it sounded like Tom Waits doing his best like Miles Davis at
That's
times.
really good. Yeah,
because the percussion's very found sound. Like it sounded like it was recorded. I don't know if you read, but it was recorded in her house. Basically.
Oh, for real?
So they basically recorded it in their living room, and I think that's like it comes through really intensely.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of it sounds like I'm kind of sitting in the room with a lot of the kind of
it feels very intimate that way.
background.
That's really cool.
And there's dogs on this album. Barking, which is great.
It's cool, yeah. This is our first time doing this, so our recording setup is very jerry-rigged, so there might be cats meowing and dogs barking in the background.
Of
so
and stuff.
we're just trying to emulate Fiona Apple, because we were so inspired by her work.
Very down to earth. Very cool. Got our whiteboard. No big deal.
And if we're doing like blank meets blank, I thought it was like, it reminded me of like a Sarah Bareilles meets like those like avant-garde 20th century composers like Schoenberg or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's pretty cool.
I thought my verses, it was like I said, Tom Waits and Billy Joel. Obviously, she owns the piano just like Billy Joel, and that's all it is.
But there's just same thing with Sarah Bareilles.
Exactly,
she's like piano.
But there's something about there's like it's very down to earth and like it's working man for the feminist. I would say, which is really cool.
That's really good.
It's like very like I feel like she says a lot of like pretty ubiquitous kind of things that maybe especially women have to deal with.
Definitely. Yes, it was definitely like there was a focus I felt like on like femininity and like those
which is a great topic for us as two white men to be talking about. I appreciate it.
I think we would definitely be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that we're two like white dudes talking about this like aggressively feminist album.
Yes.
So take that with a grain of our millions of listeners will have to take that.
Millions. Yes. So that kind of led to my like. This is, I wouldn't say it's a criticism. It's definitely, it's even more of a compliment. I think a lot of this was made for whoever wants to listen to it, obviously.
Sure.
But I think a lot of the audience who would really understand a lot of the messages would maybe be female.
Yes.
Which I'd say I think it's like a testament to how cool her songwriting is and how interesting it is that I'm like, fully behind her the whole way.
Same.
Obviously, I think everything she's saying, like I regardless of the delivery and I don't know the sentiment, I agree with every sentiment on the album. I think, which is really cool.
Yes,
so
yes.
yeah, that's definitely a plus.
I agree with you 100%. I think there are some moments where it just like, based on musical taste, I was like, I could take or leave, but thematically, it's like a very coherent album, and it's like feels very intentional. Like what I didn't like isn't because she decided, she didn't do something correctly or well. It was just because what she wanted to do wasn't what I wanted to hear. And that's not a bad thing, necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
Musically, anyway. Thematically, it was, I thought, pretty genius throughout.
I thought so, too.
Yeah, and I thought, definitely. Like, generally it walks this, like, really cool... I went into it just sort of with, like, pop in the back of my head, just because she's, like, a Grammy Award-winning, like... She had, like, a 90s hit in the single, so I'm like, oh, she's, like, a pop singer-songwriter, maybe. And so I just had this, like, pop idea in my mind, so that was sort of guiding my listening, for better or for worse, maybe. And I thought it walked, like, a really interesting line between, like... pop singer-songwriter and the avant-garde. It's like a really, really difficult line to navigate, and where to jump on one side or the other was like a difficult thing. I thought like mostly it did a pretty interesting job of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
I agree.
Yes.
Speaking of being a popular recording artist and stuff like that, we wanted to talk about the fact that she got the first 10 for a Pitchfork review in the last 10 years.
Yes, which is crazy.
Yes.
It's in very good company.
Good for her.
Sure. Yeah. That's I love Pitchfork's writing, so I definitely am like impressed whenever they give somebody a particularly high review.
With 10 years ago, it was Kanye West's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy,
which is a fantastic album.
And then before that, it was Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Yeah, so it's like
like a weird assortment of albums to be a part of, but like I don't know, very among the some of the best and stuff.
Yeah,
like
so
that.
it's well regarded for sure. So I think we picked a softball for our
first try at this.
Yeah, definitely picked one.
But it is cool to be able to talk about somebody who I've kind of had a social idea and like a cultural idea of who this person was.
Yeah.
But never really delved into the art at all.
Yeah.
And now I feel like this album being my first one listening to it, it's made me a fan.
Yeah.
Actually, which
definitely.
is cool. I feel like I'm more inclined to want to go listen to all the rest of her stuff. That's obviously amazing. She won Grammys and stuff.
Yeah.
So
she's very
I'm late to the we're late to the game here.
Yes,
obviously,
definitely. But I'm upset that I hadn't been listening to her for much longer, because I had a really great experience.
Yeah.
It was just really engaging.
Yeah.
So
and the production stayed interesting the whole time.
Same. Yeah, I agree.
It's cool.
Yeah. It's very cool.
I did want to maybe start talking about like maybe the stuff I didn't quite quite hit me as much.
What did you not like?
At first, the production in general I thought was really cool, and still do, obviously. But as a whole, I feel like I heard the click clack drums and the just kind of subtle underlying stuff the whole time.
Yeah.
And that kind of made it feel a little samey to me. So
yeah.
that would be like one of my bigger criticisms.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the good thing is that I kind of think of it in a way that like it's all, the album is one musical conversation that just kind of has different talking points that kind of come in and out. So each really beautiful hook and new thing is a deviation from where we are, but there's always this kind of like, you're going down this road of sitting in Fiona Apple's living room with her while she records dolphin noises. I don't know. Or whatever.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it is like it's a long album. It's like 13 songs, like almost an hour long, and if you've ever recorded an album, it's a very like tricky and unwieldy thing. For sure. And so there's so many more ways it can go wrong than it can go right, I feel like. And so I have a lot of respect for, I mean, it's ambitious to do that and do it so coherently. So even like, I agree with you. There were moments where like I felt like the length that I went to listen, the time that I spent listening to it was not super rewarding at times.
Right. Yeah.
Like I felt like if I had listened to any of those songs individually, because I listened to the whole thing through. I don't think I ever like picked and cherry picked songs at any point. And if I had listened to any of those songs individually, I'd been like, man, that's a good song. But I think it took a little bit of endurance for me to get to the end and enjoy every minute the same way. Just because, like you said, there's a lot of sameness, but there's also some really like rewarding moments. If you just sort of the thematic coherence of the record makes for some of those late tracks were like, dang, it's like sort of in conversation with this track and whatnot. And I guess we'll at some point we'll get into the track by track and talk about more specifically. But I think that I respect the ambition, and it was almost always rewarding. But there are just a couple of moments where I was like, I don't know, I've heard this before.
Yeah, I would agree. So, some things felt like maybe they were half thought through, and if they had been like added onto more, maybe something like that, it could have been a little more rewarding. But that's pretty much, I guess, my biggest gripe. But I guess, do you want to start doing track by track right now?
Sure, yeah. The first track, I Want You to Love Me, I liked it a lot. It sort of starts with this, what I thought was a really cool, it almost sounded like a Casio keyboard, like the stock sounds on one of those like
it definitely
cheap
did.
$20 keyboards that your parents buy you.
It kind of made me think that maybe we were about to start listening to like a Death Grips song for a second, because it's a little unassuming, and you're like, what's about to happen?
I was like, what am I getting myself
into? But then
into?
there's this amazing like swell of piano all of a sudden, and you're just like, where are we?
And that felt like super theatrical.
It did. It felt amazing. I think it's a really great intro.
And I think that this album sort of plays with dualisms in a really interesting way, like that. It sort of walks this line between like the avant-garde and the pop, and we've got this dumb keyboard sound and like really beautiful like ornate piano arrangements and stuff. So it was definitely like, I thought that first like 30 seconds gave me a very good indication of what I was getting into.
It sets the tone for the rest of the album like pretty perfectly, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I had some cool lyrics here. I thought there was like moments of it was very like pop appropriate lyricism.
Definitely.
I think the every print left on the track has led me here. Felt like you could throw that into like a bro country song if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could.
And so I thought that was, I don't know, that was really interesting. It's sort of, that first song really threw me for a few loops and put things next to each other that I didn't really expect to be next to each other. It was great, and I think that it sets the tone for the album very nicely.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah,
good intro track indeed.
You want to talk about Shamika?
Let's talk about Shamika.
Yeah.
I really like how Shamika just kind of sounds like a slightly more upbeat version of the first song, honestly. Like, they're sort of similar. It just seems like things get a little jazzed up, which is kind of cool. But I love the I guess what I glean to be the sort of the meaning behind this song, which I feel like in the song she talks about, like, Shamika never really, like, with this character, whatever it is, never really, like, it wasn't like a matter of like liking or like, it was just kind of like, we're human beings and I see that you have some, I don't know. That's kind of how I like took it, which is
that's
cool way to say it. But obviously, like, it sounds like, the song was inspired by something that happened to her when she was pretty young, so that it stuck with her that long is kind of like a neat thing to write a song about 5 albums and 20 plus years later.
Yeah, she seems to hang on to these like really old moments, which I think is cool. So her work, from what I understand, I haven't gone very deep into much of her older work, but it seems to be all her work seems to be sort of in conversation with itself, which is really interesting. This one in particular, I had done a little bit of research on where some of the songs came from. It's some classmate of hers in like elementary school or middle school just like said that to her, and she loved it. And the whole song seems pretty concerned with like external perception and validation, which is cool and interesting, and that sort of comes through, I thought, later in the album, which I love like getting an idea stuck in your head and then hearing about it again later on, which is super cool.
That's good.
And the hook felt kind of like meditative and mantra-y to me. It's like sort of if I were to sit in my room and really like want like manifesting things, and you're just like, I have potential.
Shamika said.
I think Shamika said exactly, and it's sort of it's almost like the speaker of the song like really really wants that thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
She wants to have potential so badly, which is cool, and I thought that hook just sort of amplified that and worked in conjunction with that idea really well. If that's what she was trying to do, I don't know, but that's what I got out of it.
I love it. Yeah, it's good. It's a good song. I'd say one of my favorites. This first two are just good tunes in general.
The album started like real strong.
Yeah.
I was definitely
get to the title track. Is that right?
Yeah. Fetch the Bolt Cutters. This one is inspired by a scene from the movie The Fall, where Gillian Anderson's character tells another character to go fetch the bolt cutters to get a girl who's being tortured out of there. And I think the song is sort of less specific. It's just about sort of like pulling yourself out of negative situations and stuff like that, fetch the bolt cutter. So I thought that was cool, the way that she sort of like, I don't know, borrowed from other works and other mediums. I always enjoy that sort of thing. So yeah, and I thought that it reminded me kind of the vocal performance and just the general vibe of the song felt like a cool like 90s pop song. It was very like Alanis Morissette. Like,
actually, that's exactly what I thought. I thought it,
in all the best ways, not like I don't know,
a cheesy night.
Yeah,
but there's something about how the chorus hits on this song specifically to me that seems very tender, but the words I've obviously fetch the bolt cutters are implying action and energy and stuff like that. So it kind of felt like, I don't know, it gave me kind of this vibe of having your restraints and having your internal and external like battles and stuff like that, but knowing that you have the tools to get yourself out of them. And kind of being okay with it. I don't know, maybe something like that.
yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, no,
so I come up with these things on the spot.
Yeah. There's some. I have a lot of notes, and some of my notes are really good. But when I start talking off script here, it's not good. I tend to ramble. So
we'll get better at
it. Yeah, well, yeah. This
next week.
Yeah, for like the 4 people and my mom listening, you'll just wait. It'll get better. Yeah, and I thought that it was sort of like, it was definitely like a less dense song compared to the other two. It was definitely like for me, in my opinion, like a kind of a nice moment of levity. Just because those 2 songs were like, they were great, but they were very like it took some active listening to enjoy. And I felt like this was the first one where I could just sort of like, that's just like easy listening, almost like a pop tune.
Nice and melodies and stuff.
If we're still, I talked earlier about that line that trying to walk like the between the avant-garde and the pop or whatever you want to call those two like schools of thought. This one definitely like leaned more on the pop side, but without like, I felt like the first 2 songs sort of set up some rules of the album, like what these are sort of like the rules of the universe of this album,
right.
And it didn't break those rules. I thought there were moments later on where I was like, you kind of set up this world and these like the stylistic convention, and then there are moments later on the album where it maybe leans too far in one direction or the other. But I thought this one was sort of like a tasteful stroll onto the pop side.
I fully agree. Yeah,
spectrum.
no, it was on my first listen, one of my favorites for sure.
I agree. Yeah.
It's
definitely like the easiest to get into on first.
For sure.
First
start
listen.
with.
Yes. Cool. How did you feel about Under the Table?
Under the Table was the first track that I was a little on at first after first listen. I understand what you're saying, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard to understand what people are saying, but I kind of felt that it was a little I don't know. I just kind of got like a cheese from it.
Same.
I have a hard time dealing with cheese sometimes, but I really like what she's saying a lot. Like every lyric and every like I said earlier, the sentiments are like, I fully get that, and I kind of have a. I don't know. I have a lot.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. I felt like the lyrics were sort of this. It was kind of like a snarky kind of, sassy persona maybe. I don't know if those aren't the best words maybe to describe them, but yeah, it's sort of like, and I felt like the lyrics were maybe like a little bit prosaic and conversational, and which is fine. Like there are definitely examples of that being like a super cool thing, but I just felt like it didn't land for me, especially when you've got like some really interesting like ornate language on the rest of the album.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and it's just,
it gets dumbed down a little bit.
And it's sort of, it just
rewarding.
It stuck out to me as just kind of like a weird outlier. The hook I thought was really catchy.
Yeah, the hook's catchy.
It wasn't like, again, at this album's worst, I feel like I'm like, catchy hook, it was fun.
I agree. Yeah, no, every
there's not a song that I like wouldn't want to listen to.
Right.
And I thought this like sonically too is a little less like angular. That you had some like keys and swelly guitars that it was just different. It was just kind of like I don't know, I felt like I got some a really coherent like first few tracks, and then this one was like, oh, it's kind of out there, and it took me out of the sort of like sort of self-isolating experience that I felt like I was about to get throughout the.
It was a bit of a snag on my end, but on repeated listens, I mean, it definitely grew on me a little bit, but it is one I might skip later.
Yeah, we'll see. The jury's still out on that one. Yeah. But we've been agreeing about just about everything.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we didn't really compare notes beforehand, so these are honest agreements for sure. Yeah, I think I wrote for Relay, the next track, I wrote Good-ish. It was an interesting song. Like it sort of seemed to me to be about just sort of like the cyclical nature of like pain and hate and those sorts of things. There's some really like strong images in there. The hook especially was like, evil is a relay sport when the one who's burned turns to pass the torch. I was like, that's such an interesting, like,
it is really interesting.
It's really crazy. Yeah, it's like, I think that her whole album is full of like these really crazy, like, unique images, and I'm like, oh, I wish. It's something I would never have come up with on my own. It's really beautiful, and the hook is very like repetitive and cyclical, and it's just like, I love it when those sort of things complement each other, and it just does it so beautifully and so effortlessly on this track. It was good, for sure. What do you think?
I thought, yeah, I agree. I like the song. I remember going through first listen and really loving kind of this one has a snarkiness to it too, but it's sort of like smiling through, like closed teeth almost,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bitter,
Yeah.
I guess, and I just appreciated that. It hit a lot of cool moments for me. I really liked the repetition of the chorus was my favorite part. I think just like, stylistically.
Definitely. Yeah. The one thing I didn't like though is on the verses, sort of like there's that rule they talk about in like writing school, like show don't tell or whatever, and where you're supposed to sort of like give the people images and sort of the tools to get to, which is like, I think a little bit reductive. I think there are even moments on this record where I think she just sort of like tells you how she feels, and it's really beautiful. So it's like, that's obvious. I think that rule generalizes a lot, but I think that some of the verses on this track kind of lean into sort of the bad parts of that little phrase that they teach you or whatever. The where she just talks about all the things that she resents this you character for, and it's cool. Like I agree with all, it's like those are definitely bad things that if I had to engage with a person like that, I would probably resent them as well. But it's sort of like you hear it and you're like, yeah, no shit. Like, I don't know. I wish I had sort of, it would have, I felt like it would have been maybe more rewarding to have gotten some of those beautiful images that I got on the rest of the album, instead of her just being, just sort of speaking. Again, very, very prosaic, but again, not that bad. It's just not my taste. I tend to mostly not like those sorts.
I agree.
Of
I thought
that
it maybe
style.
came off a little bit more like complainy, and I was just a little kind of like, you're right. The beautiful imagery on some of the album is it's just so much that when you do hit a song like this, it's a little I don't know, kind of you take a step back, sort of, just from maybe the level that you were at before, kind of listening.
Yeah, definitely like took me out of it.
Yeah. And I generally have a bit of a problem when songwriters like say, hey, you, this is what I don't like about you, and like, it's a little like delivered right to my doorstep, rather than
exactly. And it's
letting
like,
me get to it.
And it's so unfortunate,
because my favorite way to listen to music is not knowing what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And figuring it out later, so.
Yeah, totally. And the hook was so good that it was like, this might have been my favorite song on the record had the verses maybe been a little bit more to my taste. But again, I agree with like the thematic sentiment throughout. So it's like, it's frustrating to see that, in my opinion, sort of maybe mismanaged. But again, she's the Grammy Award winning artist, not me. So.
Yeah, definitely.
So she's doing something right. Nobody listens to our record, so I guess that's probably a sign that she might be a little bit more talented than perhaps we are. But yeah, what did you think of the next track, Rack of His?
Rack of His was actually one of my favorites.
I have it on my notes. One of my favorites.
I really liked this song a lot.
We should find a really polarizing album that we don't agree on every track on.
I'm going to look up the lyrics right now, because
here I can pull them up. I've got
that would be great.
I have all the lyrics to all the songs,
because I wanted to go through.
Here it's pulled up right here. But yeah, cool. this track was freaking awesome. You can
the melody, I don't know what exactly is playing, it sounds like a mix of piano and maybe some strings just kind of playing this plucked melody that is the melodic hook, I guess, of the song is like serious.
You talking about like in the intro?
Yeah, the intro through. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I wrote down that it reminded me of like an old like black and white horror film.
It's
an old Hitchcock film or something.
It's kind of weird, but it's like playfully playfully creepy almost,
Yeah.
but in a really like listenable
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
like
way.
Hitchcock makes like a really sexy swing.
Yeah.
In like a really weird way. I don't know. It was really cool. And this rack of his, look at that row of guitar necks lined up like eager fillies, outstretched legs of Rockettes. They don't know what they're in for, and they don't care, but I do. I thought you would wail on me like you wail on them, but it was just a coochie coochie coo. Yeah, it was pretty, I don't know, that's just like really strong, like very visceral imagery. It was just like aesthetically very pleasing to me. And it's not like the most like dense song like or anything like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I found, that like the dense ones are good, and it's cool to be able to get in and like pick apart what she's saying and stuff. The music is weird, but I feel like my favorite songs on this album are the ones that are a little easier to get into immediately, which is I don't know if that's just how it is automatically, but this one definitely has an immediate like there's a kind of there's a hook obviously and stuff like that, so it's a little more musically rewarding. So I appreciate that, I guess.
I wonder if that will change like as I listen to it more.
Yeah.
Because I listened to it like 3 or 4 times before, and for the purpose of doing this. It was definitely like a unique like I haven't listened to music for the purpose of talking about it really ever.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like as I just listen to it for my own enjoyment, if that sort of thing will change, or what my favorite tracks are. But yeah, this was immediate, one of my immediate favorites, and maybe that's because some of the denser songs reward more listens. But
I generally like the songs I don't get into immediately more later, so I'm sure it'll be the same case for this. But
yeah, definitely.
This was a highlight. Really good song.
For sure. High moment. Newspaper is the next track. And I thought it was okay. It sort of was, it was, to me, on my listen of it, it sort of was about, like, your public and private emotional life, maybe. Some of the songs are hard to parse, like
it could be about a few different things, and whatever one you choose, it's, like, applicable, so.
But I thought, like, the image of, like, a newspaper was a really cool image to describe that sort of sort of like the public and the private, and this one was probably the most difficult to me to parse in terms of like concrete meaning. There were like a few different characters. There was this you and this him that I couldn't, maybe they were the same person, maybe they weren't, and there was an I, and then there was like an us, so there were like at least like 3 or 4 people involved, and it was really interesting. And maybe I'm just not smart enough to or careful enough to
that's what it is.
Yeah, probably. Maybe I just couldn't parse through it as well, but I had a harder time sort of nailing down this one. And I also thought it was like a little less hooky than the rest of
this one being sandwiched in between the 2 songs that it's sandwiched between, if I can remember, it makes this one a lot more forgettable than the other ones. What is the next one after this?
Ladies.
Yeah, so I would say newspaper as a whole is a little less memorable in general. So
yeah.
I also had a hard time with the meaning. That's probably why I never really the music was a little like I was looking for more, and then I couldn't quite, so it came one of my skippers, I guess.
Yeah, I think if there was a skip on this track, this record, it would be this track for me. But like maybe that's just because I'm a dumbass. I don't know.
I mean,
yeah, I could
probably not.
It could just be going over my head, but that was just my impression. And I thought that this one, like where maybe the third track, the title track, sort of leaned into that poppy side of that line. I thought this one sort of pushed the other direction, and maybe not
didn't quite nail it.
Yeah, maybe sort of too much, or without at least like acknowledging the poppy side of this universe that the album has created. I don't know. But that was just,
it went too far and not going too far enough.
Yes, all of it.
Similar to a lot of these songs, I just kind of wish that there was more to expanded upon a little bit more.
Definitely. So. Yeah, I agree with you on that. We should start disagreeing at some point on this.
Okay, I'm excited to talk about the next song. What did you think about Ladies?
Ladies had my favorite lyrics on the entire record. I thought just some of them were so incredible. Particularly like it's just like really beautiful ornate imagery. There's like the ruminations on the looming effect and the parallax view and the figure and the form and the revolving door that keeps turning out more and more good women like you. And it's just like this really complex, dense, ornate, beautiful, like even if you don't know what it means, which I kind of don't, It's just still aesthetically pleasing and really beautiful. And then there's some like really grounded imagery. Like one of the verses is just sort of like seems like very conversational. It's like, oh yes, there's a dress in your closet. Don't get rid of it. You look good in it. And that just, I think the song seems to be sort of about like women and solidarity among women versus like competition. And I think that's just some really beautiful images and lyrics that accentuate that in a really cool way. And also, fruit bat cuter than a mutton-headed maniac is so cool. I just think they're pretty. I could just listen to
pretty words.
Yeah, somebody could just say the words, and I was like, that's so beautiful, and that'd be enough for me. And then you couple it with the fact that like awesome vocal performances and awesome instrumental performances and some really cool like thematic stuff going on. It just becomes like a really awesome song for sure.
Yeah. On my first listen, I didn't really like the song as a whole. It's the most, I'd say, traditionally kind of like bluesy kind of, I don't know. There's a sway and a groove to it, and it's not my favorite kind of sound, I will say. And I appreciate the lyrics, but I feel like it is so about women having solidarity with each other that it's just kind of hard for me to relate on a lyrical level, even though I appreciate what she's saying, along with the fact that it's the more traditionally kind of like slow jam blues pop song. So this one, I didn't like it at first, and then second listen I liked it more. But I feel like it's another one of those that this is the one I thought we would go back and forth on, because I don't know, I just didn't care for the song very much.
Yeah, I think this is that moment where the two white dudes have a harder time
exactly
commenting.
So it's cool, but when she started saying ladies, 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 I was just like, and I don't know. Specifically that was kind of like a turnoff for me. So I like this song, and I really like the sentiment, like I keep saying, but not one that I would probably go back to as a favorite on the album.
Yeah,
that's what I would say about it.
Cool.
Good nonetheless, though.
I'm glad we disagreed on something. That makes me feel
finally
better that it's not just a weird echo chamber that
Yeah.
we're in. Cool. Yeah, Heavy Balloon. This was sort of the last song on the album that I was like excited about. I thought after this song it started to sort of teeter off for me personally. But this one was really cool. It's sort of about sadness and maybe depression or something like that. And I thought that a heavy balloon is such a cool way to describe that, because balloons are sort of this thing that's supposed to, whenever you see a balloon you think like light, airy, happy, fun, but it might be internally very heavy. And so I think that that's an interesting like parallel to like how I don't struggle with depression myself, but how a depressed person might feel. It's like you see all these people, and other people see you as supposed to be happy and good and cool, and then you just got this weight dragging you down. So I just thought that was like a really strong way to describe that. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. I also really liked this song for the most part. At first, the hook, I spread like strawberries, I climb like peas and beans. I love that image and that idea. I just think the words strawberries, specifically peas and beans, are goofy as hell. So when I first heard them, I was like, but I got it, and I was like, that's actually really cool. I really like what she's saying there. I feel like this starkly has kind of like different feelings in the choruses and the verses. Yeah. And I feel like 50% of it I'm like really into, and the other 50% I'm kind of on. Yeah. But I don't know. The like you said, the heavy balloon thing, I love that. I kind of feel like I identify with that imagery a lot.
Cool. I'm glad that you were able to relate to that.
No, I've dealt with some depression in my life, so whatever. But it's like I don't know. Heavy balloon is a good way to say it.
Definitely, yeah. There were moments on it though where I disagree with you about the strawberry thing. By the way, the strawberry and beans. I loved that lyric.
Yeah,
I thought it was cool. I don't know, just weird, like climbing.
Well, I like it now. Like I just more thought about it. I had to get used to the wording of peas, and for some reason saying peas and beans.
Peas and beans.
Sounds
gross. Sounds like a baby food or something.
Crawl like peas and beans. Sounds like
it sounds
it sounds creepy. It's a little weird, but I'm over it now and I like it.
Cool.
It's cool.
It's good. Just had
cool.
So yeah,
that's a great tune.
Yeah, there were some moments though that I thought like it kind of leaned back into that weird prosaic thing that I didn't like so much. Like
that's part of the reason I
I think it was the
that
verses.
Was the 50% I didn't care for.
Yeah, I think I wrote down some lyrics here that I thought were a little like people like us get so heavy and so lost sometimes. It's kind of like, I mean, duh, that's like what being sad is.
That's what the song is about.
Yeah, like you could have like it was one of those lyrics that I felt like you could have just cut it. Like I got all that information out of the balloon thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it was just like it felt a little redundant to me. Maybe there was already so much work being done with all the other lyrics that I was like, I already know that. Like that was what I got out of what you already said. So it's kind of like
I agree.
Felt like some thematic content being shoved down my throat a little bit, but it was good thematic content. So I can't be that mad.
Yeah. Cosmonauts.
Yeah, this is we talked about this one earlier.
Yeah, we had a small discussion about it. I actually love this song. I think this is my favorite song on the album. It's like Heavy Balloons was your last highlight of the album. I think this was my last highlight of the album. I think it does that thing where it does the traditional kind of like bluesy sound that's or poppy sound that's a little more like easy to get into to start in the beginning, but then it kind of unfolds into something more interesting and gets more noisy and kind of crazy. But it's I think specifically the hooks are wonderful, and I like the I think the idea and the imagery of being cosmonauts is a little played out, and it's like a little like what does that mean or whatever, you know? But I really I feel like she knows that, and I feel like she's kind of leaning into it, and there's just something about it that I really liked, you know? So it's a good moment of levity on the album. Yeah.
At least she didn't say like astronaut. I feel like if she had said astronaut, I would have been like, all right, get out.
That's even worse. So if she said cosmonaut. I feel like she was aware.
Cool. Yeah, so, she was like, I don't know.
I do agree that it can sound a little like stale, but I think what she does with everything is super great, especially when you consider the change from the beginning to the end. It gets kind of washy like parts of the album get, in my favorite way, I think.
Totally. Yeah. And the percussiveness of cosmonaut next to the word couple.
Exactly.
It was really nice, and there's something like slightly more foreign and strange about a cosmonaut.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was nice.
Something cute about it at the same time.
Yeah. It was kind of cute. It was like a cutesy little like oh, I want to be in love.
I think that's kind of what I liked about it.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, it was kind of maybe a little bit boring lyrically compared to some of the other really good songs on the record. Right. But I think like that hook is so catchy. It's gonna be one of those things where it's like annoyingly stuck in my head all the time.
That's a lot of these songs. I keep generalizing them, but I feel like that's the thing. Maybe one of my issues with the record is that like every song, right, whether I think it's my favorite or least favorite, has parts on it that I'm like, wow, this is really good, but also has parts on it that I'm like, we can skip through this like little 10-second, 15-second bit, you know. So it feels like the album is consistently like doing great things, but also leaves a little to be desired up to this point.
Very briefly though. Like I don't.
There's no points where I'm like dragging. I don't want to skip a song entirely like ever yet. Yeah. But it does. Yeah.
Almost every song has a moment that I'm very excited.
There's always a payoff that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the next song was called For Her, and this one was a little bit. It was interesting. It was really heavy, thematically. I think it was about sexual assault and things like that, which is like just obviously really difficult for me to speak into.
Absolutely.
Just obviously I haven't dealt with that in the same way that a woman might. And so in that sense, I mean, I feel I didn't like the song as much, but it wasn't for me at all.
Yeah.
So, it's really hard to speak on that sort of thing, but
I would agree. I feel like I didn't like the song as much also, but I think it's because it did its job in putting me maybe in an uncomfortable place. Which is cool. That's great. But also I feel like, looking at it objectively, the music I feel like wasn't as engaging either, is another kind of that symptom of being not quite as thought out as it could have been, and maybe it could have been a little more like, I don't know, it goes experimental in a Tom Waits way, but doesn't quite have like, I don't know. It doesn't round it out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I felt like
a little underthought. Maybe.
The first half of it reminded me of that, like the Taylor Swift single, the Bridge to Me. You know, yeah, I know, like that sort of like marching bandy sort of.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do have that.
It was a little bit like, I was like, oh man, like I don't know, I didn't like that, but there were again like some moments where I was like. There were some lyrics where I was like, "Geez, that is like."
Yeah, it's heavy.
There were some really affecting lyrics that, like you said, made me very uncomfortable in a really like affecting way, and in a way that like good art does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like for one of my less favorite songs on the record, it had probably some of the most emotional moments for me.
Also, knowing it's coming from somebody who has experience in that kind of thing,
totally.
It's like
Yeah, there's
obviously affecting for your entire life, so it should continue to be written about, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a few moments on this record where knowing sort of where the songs came from really changed, sort of augments the meaning of them a little bit.
Yeah, it kind of makes it go from going to seeming a little like, I don't know, a little kind of like, everybody sucks to like, ooh, everybody sucks.
She knows everybody sucks.
Like she's aware and she has evidence, So
it just sent me on a weird rabbit hole for sure, and I think that that's what good art does. Sometimes.
I agree. I fully agree.
So yeah,
cool, good song. For various reasons.
Yes. Drum Set was the next track, and it was my least favorite on this album. I don't have there's not any songs that I would say I'm like not super into, except for maybe this one. It just sort of felt like a bland, unoffensive breakup song to me. It's like it's weird because if I had heard it maybe on a less good album, I would have been like, oh, it's a pretty good song,
right? Or
even heard it by itself, and I would have been like, oh, it's a fine song. But it's just like it's sort of standing next to these like pretty great songs in my opinion, and it didn't do much for me.
Yeah, no, it's the only song on the album that I actively don't remember what it sounds like right now. So. I remember not hating it when I was listening to it. I remember being like, yeah, this is fine. But I do remember being like, well, there's 2 songs left on the album. I kind of just want to get to that closing track.
Yeah.
So it seems like, it could have been left out and we could have had a slightly shorter, more concise album. But I mean, I don't know. Or something else could have been done with it. But I don't know. Maybe it'll take time, and maybe there's some sort of hidden meaning in there that I haven't quite gotten yet.
Like I said, I feel like this is an album that rewards multiple, deep dives and lots of listens. So that I feel like that opinion might change, and it's not like it's not bad. It's just I feel like this album has like set the bar very high, and so just like a normal boring track just doesn't really like seem to fit all that well. But yeah, I don't have much to say about that one. Honestly.
I don't either.
Yeah. What do you think of the closing track? We're almost to the end.
I was thrown off by the closing track at first because I was not expecting it. Really, it seems a lot more frustrated than everything else.
Yeah.
It seems a lot more kind of more outwardly bitter, but with action, I guess. I don't know. It's just like, I am this, and this is my conclusion now, and I'm a little upset, and kind of like that's kind of how the album left me, because that song was very, especially the ending being really abrupt and just kind of like some angry noise and repeated words, and then over, and then that's the last thing you hear. So I was like, oh wow, maybe it's not like going to be okay. Maybe I'm pissed, and that's how I'm going to be forever.
I relate to that hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's really funny.
That's kind of how I get that. That's one of the I unfortunately didn't get to the second half of the album as much as the first. So that song didn't get as much attention as I wanted it to. But that's kind of what I think about it at the moment.
I thought like thematically it was a really nice like wrap up of the whole record.
Right.
Musically, I was a little like on it,
a little less interesting, even though it gets kind of weird and kind of cool. I feel like it definitely could have gone way more in that direction than it did.
And and it's not for any like good art reason. It's just like I was just bored, and I think that's just my taste, or maybe my ADD at the end of an hour-long album.
It's hard sometimes.
And so it's like I don't know how much of that is like me just being like having a short attention span, or how much of that is like consideration on the artist's part to make an engaging final track. Is that her problem? I don't know. Like, exactly. I don't think that. I don't know if that's. I don't know if
it might not even be a consideration.
Exactly. I don't know exactly if she has me in mind when she's. I don't think she cares about me when she's writing it. And it's very cyclical. Obviously, that those 4 lyric lines are repeated over and over and over again. And I think that there's sort of the album sort of considers like the cyclical nature of all these bad things that happen and all the negativity and suffering and depression and how they sort of relate to themselves temporally. I'm trying to think of like a less pretentious way to say that. That's like kind of dense, but like I don't know. So I thought it was like a nice way to sort of wrap up that thematically. It reminded me. Do you know Steve Reich? Like the
yeah, of course.
It reminded me. He has a piece called Music for Clapping, and it's just like an eight bar, like a 4 bar, rhythmic thing, and it's just hands clapping, and then every time it goes through the cycle, one of the it's two performers, and one of the performers moves the rhythm over by 1/8 note, and it goes in this big cycle, and comes back around to the beginning until they're clapping again. So I don't know if Fiona Apple listens to Steve Reich, but the sort of the rhythmic elements, there's those clapping hands and some sort of loopy rhythmic stuff going on. That reminded me of that, and it would be like one of the coolest art things ever if she did that super intentionally, and even if she didn't, it's still one of the coolest art things ever. And so I thought if it is all the cyclical things that are going on in this record, if she was like kind of nodding to Steve Reich, that would like blow my mind. And if she wasn't, it still is
make it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it still is like pretty incredible. And I just think that that's like they're very similar, and I think the sentiment behind Music for Clapping. I might be butchering the title for that like a little bit, but that's the thing. It's very similar.
They don't give a fuck.
I don't know. I guess we've cursed a couple of times on this.
I remember just as I said that. So.
Yeah, well, we might have to flag this. I don't know what the rules of podcasting are, so we'll just upload it and see if we get flagged.
Yeah.
Or whatever they do, the cursing police come and knock on our door.
The ASPCA. Wait, no,
they aren't. Who sings the "In the Arms of an Angel"?
Fly away.
Yes, the redheaded chick. It's not Reba McEntire. It's
I don't remember her name.
It's killing. It's gonna kill.
It's the only song she has, and I've never actually heard the whole song. I've only heard
only
that 30 seconds from the ASPCA commercial.
Yeah, all right. Great song. I thought it was a great way to close the album. If I was a little bored by music,
I fully agree with you, which is not a surprise.
Yeah.
So I guess as a conclusion, for me, I would say that I give this album a thumbs up. I really liked it. It made me a fan of Fiona Apple. I feel like it's probably, to me, not knowing anything about Fiona Apple and being very, very new to her music, feels like maybe the most authentic, maybe like version of her music that I feel like that I've heard so far. It just feels really like, obviously it was recorded in her own space, and it sounds really at home and stuff like that. And going back and listening to some of her stuff before, I hear a lot of the elements that I hear in this album. I just hear more kind of like refined, like everything's bitter, but it's bitter with wisdom, and it's very I don't know, it seems like it kind of defines her as an artist a little bit, which is cool. She's got a lot of cool things to say, and she's saying them now as well as or better than she has on other releases, given my very limited knowledge, like I said. But yeah, so that's kind of my wrap up of how I think of the album.
I agree with you. I give it like 2 fat thumbs up. Like at its worst, it's like a little boring and maybe a little front loaded, but like that's like the most minimal. The best records of all time like aren't even that. You
Right.
could say worse things about some like really iconic albums. And so the moments that are great are like pretty mind-blowingly great. And so I had, it was a great listening experience. I don't have the bad things that I said about it are like so minimal. There's a lot of really great stuff on this album.
I would say to cure your desire, this is what I did to cure my desire for maybe like wanting to hear a little bit more from the experimental side of the album, I just went and listened to Rain Dogs by Tom Waits, and it was like fine. But then I feel like if you're into maybe wanting the more poppy side, check out Sarah Bareilles.
I don't actually like Sarah Bareilles.
I've never listened to her other than that one stupid song. But
yeah, my mom loves Sarah Bareilles.
I think maybe we give too much credit to Sarah Bareilles and not enough credit to Fiona Apple. Maybe no, I don't know. I have no idea.
If like I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a dad rock band, but if some like dumb blues band is like dad rock, I feel like Sarah Bareilles is like mom rock.
Mom rock indeed.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like Mom Rock meets Tom Waits in the best way.
Oh yeah, actually, that's an amazing way to put that. Mom Rock meets Tom Waits. Oh wait, what were your top 2 or 3 tracks on the album?
Oh geez,
I wanted to do like favorites if you felt
yeah,
like
definitely. I would love to do that. I don't know. Yeah, Ladies and Fetch the Bolt Cutters. I feel like are probably, and Rack of His.
Yeah,
those probably Rack of His my favorite. Then Fetch the Bolt Cutters. Then Ladies.
I was gonna say my favorite is Cosmonauts. I think right now, but then battling for second are Rack of His and Fetch the Bolt Cutters.
Yeah,
really good songs. The first 2 songs are awesome. I don't know,
yeah.
Not a lot of bad spots on the album, but
for sure.
Those are my favorites.
For sure, definitely. Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for listening to our first episode of Chew Gum and Get Limber. I had to look again because I forgot again.
I remembered.
But yeah, Chew Gum and Get Limber. Hopefully we'll be making more episodes of this. I had a really good time making it. So yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Feel free to subscribe to us on Patreon and follow Brendan and I on Instagram.
Yeah, it'll keep us from selling out like a bunch of sellouts. And we don't have a Patreon or a Twitter or anything, but when we get it,
we're just sitting in this room.
Yeah,
really good here. Signing off. Goodbye.
Bye.